Welcome to the new episode of Cybersecurity Awareness by Yashashvi Kumar. In this episode, we have one of the greatest minds of the country. He is a computer science professor in one of the top institutes of India, that is IIT Kanpur. He has got several patents registered under his name. He has mentored many students. He is none other than Dr. Sandeep Shukla sir from IIT Kanpur. Do watch the entire episode and I'm pretty sure that you will get a lot to learn. Thank you. Mr. Sandeep Shukla sir, thank you so much for accepting our invitation, for being the guest of this episode. I know that this episode is going to be one of the most knowledge packed episode, and after this podcast is done, I can say that this is a IIT Kanpur backed episode. So make sure listeners you hear it and watch it very well. So without before getting into much technicality of how to secure, what to secure, why to secure, what happened that this entire concept of cybersecurity came into picture? Any?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So, you know that back in 1989, we used to have this Unix-based servers, desktops, etc. At universities. The computer was not very common otherwise. So there was this student in Berkeley who actually found that in there was a program called Finger, and the Finger program, if you use it, you could see who is logged into which machine, and there was a buffer overflow bug in that program, and he actually exploited that. And that was one of the probably first well published example of a cyber attack by exploiting a buffer overflow bug. So people before that, when they were designing the Unix system, designing the various libraries for Unix, or like in Berkeley, AT&T, IBM, and many other places, also TCP/IP was being designed. People did not think about cybersecurity, or at least to that extent that they were aware of the various ways, various flaws in the programs as well as in the design could be exploited. And soon after that, this various other small problems started surfacing. But it is not until around year 2000 when certain companies in the US, they started having this bug submission websites, and these bug submission websites started becoming quite big, and then it started soon after that it started monetizing the bugs that were found. And in the same time, at the same time, the NSA, the National Security Agency in the US, they have been pretty active since the early days of cryptography. So in 1970s, 80s, and so on. So cryptography was mainstay of cybersecurity in those days. But soon they started finding that through these bugs, they could actually bug people's computer, phones, etc. And therefore, there started to be a marketplace for vulnerabilities. And this became quite out of hand by 2008, 2009. And then Iranian nuclear, facility in Nantes, that was actually attacked with the Stuxnet worm, which was pretty devastating. It actually had effect on the physical, components, the centrifuges of uranium enrichment. And this led to white, and it was actually done through nation state attacks. But eventually this particular worm came out in the wild, and it kind of started attacking throughout the world. And people started sitting up and taking notice that this is now going to become a full-fledged cyber war. And but before this, the Russian hacker groups, like the one that did the Zeus botnet, They were using botnets by installing botnets on people's computer. They were exploiting, through keylogger and other ways. They were getting people's credit card information, bank account credentials, and so on, and they made huge money through that. But I would say that around 2009-10, it started taking a very uh, cynical shape, because attackers all over the place around the world, there was a marketplace for vulnerabilities, zero-day vulnerabilities, zero-click vulnerabilities, and so on. And this has become now, has become a kind of out of hand situation right now. Every day, if you read the technical news, every day there are multiple very large scale attacks, and situation has become pretty grave. And now, without having cognizance of cybersecurity as a discipline, and also for without doing cybersecurity for any company, even small scale companies, we cannot really hope to survive in the business. So that's the in short, a kind of my uh, own observations on cybersecurity over the period of my career.
So that was absolutely very great, because you are from the generation who has seen the transformation, the evolution of cybersecurity. I am of
Correct. Yeah.
that generation that is born when cybersecurity has already evolved at a certain point, right? And
Correct.
people of
Yeah.
my generation, we just consume the contents. We are most of us are very unaware that whether the
Mhm.
thing we are consuming, it the software that we are putting into our machines, whether it is to be trusted or not. Like for example, many of us install pirated softwares like pirated MS Office in a hope that we don't have to pay for that amount that Microsoft is asking for, and we can enjoy Office for free. So what is the concept behind that? Is it just only the software, or some other software can also be binded with that pirated one?
Oh, so that is actually happening quite a bit, right? So, for example, when Windows 11 came out, the people were getting links which said that they are getting getting an advanced version of Windows 11 for testing, etc. But when they downloaded, they were basically completely, exploited or compromised. But we had a case last year. One PhD student from another department came to us. Her machine was her laptop, which had all her thesis work, was ransomware. And eventually we came to know the way it happened is that she downloaded a pirated version of a popular graphing software, or some software that they require in biology. And this software was actually she downloaded from an unauthentic source, of course, because it's pirated. And that had the ransomware inbuilt into it. So then she was completely compromised, and she had no backup, unfortunately. So it was a pretty sad situation. And this ransomware did not have a antidote available as of then. So she lost all her data. So pirated software today, attackers know that people use pirated software, and therefore they actually put that kind of payloads inside pirated software and attract people by phishing and other ways to actually download their version of the pirated software and compromise people. They can put keyloggers, they can put bots, they can put backdoors, trojans, etc. in on your machine. So pirated software is one of the most dangerous things to download in today's cybersecurity environment. Also, even if it's not pirated, so I don't know if you have seen that yesterday only npm was compromised in some packages being compromised. We have seen Python packages, well-known Python libraries being compromised. These are open source software that we download, assuming that the open source community is maintaining its correctness, security, etc. But many times, because these are community maintained, some rogue element might actually slip in. It also happened with Russia, during the first few weeks of Ukraine Russia war. So this is a major concern that whatever you download from the net, unless you actually are very sure of the source or you have some way of testing the software in a sandbox environment before using it, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, exactly, sir, exactly. So, being a professor of one of the top institutions of India, sir, you have been teaching many students. So,
Mhm.
what do you see in the common Indians? Like, are they cyber aware? Do they know that they are vulnerable to many threats? How do you see that? How much aware is Indians regarding their
Oh,
digital security and privacy, sir?
so the students when they come in, they are not very aware. But if they take some courses, they may become aware. But then computer science students might actually get a chance to take such courses. Other students from other disciplines, they actually not necessarily are taking such courses, so they are not so aware. But again, this situation is such that even in companies and PSUs and government entities, we see lack of awareness, lack of proper protection, lack of proper cyber hygiene. So it's not only students. In general, in India, the awareness of cybersecurity is very, very low. And most of the time, common people, they actually get affected by cyber crime, not so much by the attacks that could actually jeopardize your national interest and national security. But then when it comes to organizations such as power plants, ports, airports, airlines, there the attacks are happening from either from hacker gangs who are trying to get some extort some money from you through ransomware, or from nation state attackers. And these attackers are very, very resourceful. Therefore they have a lot of research behind what they're doing, and a lot of development. So it's very difficult to protect systems from there. Common people, common students, they if they're not aware, they normally get hit by cyber crime. Like for example, people often Google for a phone number, support line phone number, and then there are actually using search engine optimization and all other stuff. Hackers put in false phone numbers, and when you call, they ask you to download a software on your machine to help you, but then they will actually compromise you and probably get money from extort money from you, or actually steal money from you. There are cases where by doing that, you actually got fooled into putting money into some bank account in hope of getting return on your whatever money that you had used. So therefore there are cases where cyber crimes are hitting common people more than cyber attacks. But for high value targets like the government entities, government, military,
Critical
and all that stuff,
infrastructures.
critical infrastructure, this is a big problem, that the attackers might be very highly resourceful, and therefore without adequate preparation, awareness, proper training, it's very difficult to stay away from such attacks.
All right, sir. So my question is, sir, it's
Hmm.
different from whatever that you have said. So my question
Hmm.
is whether the cyber war of about which we all keep talking about and about which the rumor keeps on moving,
Hmm.
has the cyber war begun? Like, are the states are sponsoring hackers to hack other states and other nations?
Yes, so like as we have seen this a lot, especially on targets in America, and like for example, in 2020 there was this solar wind attack, and the investigations point to the Russian state sponsored hacker group it's advanced persistent threat group called APT-28. We have seen the other cases where the Ukrainian attacks on Ukrainian power grid by the Russians in 2016 and 2015. We have seen attacks on Saudi Aramco oil and gas pipeline from Iranians. We have seen attacks on Iranian plants by other countries. We have seen uh, during the ongoing Ukraine-Russian war, we are seeing a lot of attacks on Ukraine, some on Russia by activist group like Anonymous. We are seeing also attacks on the US, but we also saw like in 2020, early 2020, we saw that or 21 actually, we saw that an American company called Recorded Futures, they found that 10 facilities in India, 8 power and 2 ports, they were sending information to command and control servers linked to China. And earlier this year also, we found that similar attacks to the similar seemingly from similar Chinese related groups were happening for many other state load dispatch centers related to power infrastructure in northern India, including in Leh. So there are ongoing cyber wars at a level that is not boiling over yet, but it can boil over any time, especially if there is a real world conflict. Chances are then they attack. So the nation state attackers are positioning themselves rather than doing the attack on a large scale. It seems that so there is a very interesting book on this, and by this New York Times cybersecurity journalists, and in the title of the book is about I paraphrase that this is how the world will end, and basically the whole book is about how people are using vulnerabilities. The marketplace for vulnerabilities are used to buy zero-day attacks, zero-day exploits, zero-click exploits by nation states and groups related to the various nation states, what we call advanced persistent threat groups. So yeah, so the attack is the war is on. The question is whether the war is flaring up or not. That depends on the situation on the ground. So when we had the skirmish at the border with China in the summer of 21, we saw more activities than we are seeing maybe today. So things can go really south in case of a real armed conflict. In case because people have already positioned themselves, they have compromised many of our systems, and for any nation, a lot of systems are compromised, but they're Trojans. They are waiting for command from their command and control servers, and things can actually avalanche from that if real conflicts happen or diplomatic impasse happens.
All right, sir. So you being a professor, you must have guided hundreds of students. You have mentored many students on cybersecurity topics. You yourself have patents under your name. You have done your own research. So, uh, what do you see India like? Do India has the potential to fight back a cyber war? What potential do you see in India in terms of cyberspace, in terms of its security, in terms of its privacy?
Well, I think we are still not very up to the mark in terms of protecting against a full scale cyber war. Launched by very cyber active nation states such as China or Russia or even United States. Things are getting better. Government is taking cybersecurity a lot more seriously today than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So things are improving, but it is a long way to go. One misconception we often hear that Indians are very good in bug bounty space. So if you go to Facebook, Google, Microsoft, or any other bug bounty hall of fame, you will see a lot of Indian names. But you will notice that those bug bounties are mostly related on the web space, mostly web space or Android application, etc. But to protect against cyber attacks, we need lot more, knowledge, lot more strategy, lot more architects, more robust system architectures in place. Those are not something that you can do with the bugs bounty hunters, because this requires a deep knowledge of systems, networks, all the way to like physical layer devices, physical layer signaling in communication, satellite communication, GPS systems. It requires understanding of critical infrastructure security, operational technology in critical industries like power system, nuclear plants, even water treatment plant, gas oil pipeline, etc. Their things are pretty much in infantile stage compared to many other countries, especially United States and Israel, for example, or even European Union. So we have a long way to go. So, but things are moving in positive directions in last few years. A lot of ministries are taking cybersecurity seriously, building task forces specific to that particular sector. So we work a lot with the power sector, for example, or telecom sector. Also, we are seeing movements at the national level. Some states are also taking cybersecurity seriously. They're having their own computer emergency response teams and cyber security incident response team, and so on and so forth. So we are seeing improvements, but we have a long way to go, and we need a lot more manpower. And this manpower, there is one thing, offensive security, that bug bounty hunters do, but the defensive security, we need a lot more manpower and a lot more education opportunities in that field, and a lot of more faculty who are expert in this, so that they can train more people. So we need a lot more of that. But yeah, I mean, we are right now, in my, at least as far as I can tell, we are not ready.
Yes, sir. Even I have seen that from last 4 5 years, cybersecurity as a skill is being given by many of the training companies. Earlier, if you want to do any technical course, there used to be Android, C++, or any other programming language.
Mhm.
But from last 4 5 years, many of the training companies are also providing cybersecurity as a career. So cybersecurity
Correct.
as a subject, as a career, is being spreading a lot from 4 to 5 years. And during the pandemic, when
Correct.
everything got digital, that
Mhm.
cybersecurity education is just a click away. If I have a
Yeah.
laptop, I can gain any knowledge.
Right.
So coming to what our podcast is centered to, of an year back, an app name was very spread away on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, that government of India is using an app against the civilians of India, against the citizens of India. The app name was Pegasus. So what was the reality of Pegasus, sir? What was its backend architecture? Was it really used against us? If yes, then for what sort of purposes? If not, then why that rumor was so pumped up? What Pegasus actually was?
Well, it is impossible for me to be sure whether it was used or not, because there is a whole Supreme Court monitored investigation ongoing. So we cannot say whether it was used or not. But there has been a number of people, journalists, and so on, who have been attacked by Pegasus. So their phone images were sent to Amnesty Labs, and they confirmed that they had Pegasus in their on their phone. So that people made correlations, like, these are very specific kind of people with a specific kind of agenda. So therefore, people suspected that this might have been used, and this is an international story, because it has been found to be suspected to be used by Saudi Arabia, by France, by Germany, many other countries in the same kind of way. So, so obviously that riled up the people, because without warrant you cannot do certain things. As far as legalities are concerned. So obviously, if it was done, then there would be problems with respect to legal methods for surveillance, legal method for monitoring. Usually you need a warrant or something to do this, but if there was warrant against the people on whose phone this was found, then the question is, where is the warrant, etc. So that's some of the questions, and then it became political. So when politics gets involved, then obviously things get pumped up, especially by the media. So a lot of it has to do with the politics of the thing. But in any case, this NSO group has now been under scanner by a lot of countries. Apple and Google, they have actually sued them in the United States courts. There are governments who have banned them or actually reprimanded them. So this thing has become an international political nightmare. So we cannot tell whether it was used or not as of now. We'll have to wait for the Supreme Court's committee to come out with their findings. But it is pretty dangerous. This kind of attacks on this kind of tools. Actually, there has been calls for moratorium on this kind of tools. These are basically weapons, basically cyber vulnerability weaponized uh, by certain companies for profit. So this is something that needs to be considered in view of the ethics of computer science, ethics of cybersecurity, moralities, and legalities. So this is a difficult subject to speak on, really, frankly. So let's leave it at that.
Sure, sir. You just spoke about Pegasus software. So can we say that it was like a spyware app?
Yeah, so it is a spyware actually. So
Okay.
it is a particularly powerful spyware. There are spyware which are just used to get data from your computer, or get your put a keylogger and send your keystrokes to the command and control server, etc. But this was kind of an encompassing spyware. So it is a spyware on steroid, to say, to characterize it.
Yeah, so when this name Pegasus came into picture all around the social media and everywhere, people came out of the concern that their privacy will be compromised, their data will be compromised, their data will be shared with the government. But what I
Mhm.
think, sir, it's my point of view that even if I am onto some social media, if I'm onto some online platform, I have already made myself vulnerable to many unknown cyber threats, right? Because
Mhm.
I have already linked my Google account with that.
Yes.
If I have linked my Google account with that, so my Google Images is linked with that, my Gmail is linked with that, my Google Calendar is linked
Mhm.
with that, my Google Drive, entire thing. If I'm using an Android
Mhm.
phone, I'm already open to Google. Google has all my
Correct.
data, right, sir? So this will be wrong to say that if I am making something online, if I am digitally online somewhere, available somewhere,
Hmm.
then I am not sharing my data, right, sir?
Hmm.
Because our data, more specifically, more particularly, users' data is being used by company to make revenue,
Hmm.
right, sir? So
Correct.
coming to cloud security, the newer version of
Hmm.
storing our data, the newer version, the latest version for keeping our backups, how secure is cloud backups? Like how secure is Google Drive? Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, so Google Drive basically it depends on what's in your service level agreement when you sign up for a Google Drive, right? So you have to see very carefully what is written in there. But in general, Google himself can read everything that you put on Google Drive. What Google guarantees is that it will not share it with anybody else. But then we normally don't read the fine prints in the agreement, right? So we just click agree and on all that stuff. But Google can read the information unless you encrypt it yourself and then upload it. But very few of us do that, right? So the data is completely open for Google to read. Even if Google encrypts it for saving it from others, Google has the encryption key in that case, and they have the data. So keeping your data in the cloud, like Google or Microsoft OneDrive or other places, you're basically keeping not keeping the data. That means that that particular data is not that private. If the data is that private, you wouldn't put it into the cloud, or you will put it into the cloud after encrypting it yourself, where the key of the encryption is with you, and in which case the Google cannot read it. But the question about what you were initially saying, that we ourselves put out a lot of our private information in the social media, uh, and versus what happens in a spyware, I would say that it's a matter of question of agency, right? So who has the agency to do something with my data? In one case, when I put data on my Facebook page, or wherever, YouTube or wherever, I have the agency. I am the person who can wish or do not wish to do the put that data out there. Whereas in case of a spyware, I lose my agency, right? So this is a very
Yes, sir.
important concept, that somebody is taking away my agency. It's my right to have the agency, and if somebody takes away that right, then it's not. It's basically is a crime. So therefore, the question of cyber attacks versus putting your information out there, although I have to say that many times we make a mistake by putting so much information on the social media, because social engineering is a one big way of cyber crime. Cyber criminals find information about us, our likes and dislikes and other things, and then accordingly send phishing email or stalking or many other cyber stalking, or whatever they want to do, they can do it because we put such information. So it's we might be misusing our agency to actually put that information out, and we should be more aware and more careful about what we put out. But spyware actually takes away the agency completely, so that's a very different thing.
Yes, sir. Like if I have some spyware on my phone, all my photos, all my OTPs,
Yeah.
everything will be gone. It will be just like my phone has been cloned virtually to the attacker's device, right,
Yeah,
sir?
so one particular attack that is happening, one of my relative, he got a malware on his phone to phishing or something, and then they copied all his contacts and all his pictures and everything, and then they started sending messages to those contacts, that the victim, and by naming the victim and giving his picture, because they have the access to his picture, they're saying that this guy owes me money. and since he is not giving me the money, you as his contact should give me the money, right? Now this is very embarrassing for the victim, because a lot of people are not even going to ask him. They would think that this guy is in a dire state, and he is unable to pay back his loans, and these loan amounts that they show are very small. So this is cyber harassment, and also cyber crime. But in this case, the guy did not put that information on Facebook or anything. His agency was robbed of him by putting a spyware onto his phone.
Yes, sir. Even I remember fake Facebook profiles were made, and
Mhm.
they made the same friends as of the real account, and they send them
Right,
requests that please send me 5,000, ten
money.
thousand. The amounts were very lower that one can afford to send, and uh, won't
Yeah,
won't really
yeah.
think that
So
this is not coming from a trusted source, sir. So
right,
yeah, cyber hygiene is that should be the topmost priority for everyone, for every common citizens, that should be inculcated.
right.
So any can you give us any two or three cyber threats that we are
Mhm.
common people are vulnerable to?
So one of the thing that like common people who are not so aware is social engineering, through which your credentials, OTP, etc., can be stolen, right? So, for example, I got a call few weeks ago. Somebody saying that your credit card is getting suspended for 6 months, and I'm calling from the credit card, and I can fix it if you say tell me the OTP on your phone, right? And the reason, obviously, I realize that this is obviously a fake call, but the reason is that the credit card I have allows you to log in by just using your credit card number and an OTP. So if the attacker and credit card number, knowing somebody's credit card number is easy. So now they have to just fool the person to get the OTP, right? So this kind of thing, that social engineering, one has to be very very careful about social engineering, falling victim to social engineering. So not trusting calls from unknown sources saying that they represent your bank, represent your even social media account, or any such thing, and they have to basically refuse to give any information on phone, especially OTPs or pin codes, etc. The other thing that one has to be so I hear a lot about the account takeover on Facebook and other places. I think that is many times because they don't turn on the two-factor authentication. So Facebook and all, they all have two-factor authentication, which you can enable. So guessing your password is often easy, but doing both the factors is lesser chance that the attackers will be able to get both the factors. So I think that is something that one has to be careful about. Password hygiene is very important, that you have to create passwords that are not very simple or related to anything that you have information about on the social media, right? It has to be completely different, and it should have all those other things like so many numbers, characters, special characters, etc. But even then it's not that difficult, often to guess it, because we are humans and we form our passwords based on our whatever we are more familiar with, and so on. So people can still guess. So two-factor authentication is a must for any account which you need protection, like social media, bank account is normally requires two-factor these days. But any other account that you have to have two-factor authentication. The other thing is, obviously, be careful about what links you click, what pictures or what files or PDF files, etc. you download when you get an email from even from known sources. You better call the person. If you find that some email has come from somebody that you better call before you click on the link or download the stuff on your machine. So being aware of phishing or smishing or wishing or various other forms of phishing, being aware of that is very very important. And also use of antivirus on your machines, and don't use pirated antivirus. And similarly, turning the firewall on your machine. These are some of the basic hygienes one has to maintain, at least at the very least.
Correct, sir. It is us who make ourselves vulnerable to attackers. We don't know what we are
Correct.
putting up online, and we are leaving our digital footprints there that are like quite very dataful to the attackers. I've also seen many students. I'm a final year student, a computer science
Mhm.
engineering student, sir, and I have seen many of my friends that they say I'm very cyber aware. I know all the cyber security stuffs and all. I do not open attachments from unknown emails and all. But yeah, I use pirated antivirus. I use Kaspersky.
Mm,
I use no other, but I use the pirated one. So there it
mm.
ends up all. So yeah, that was all, sir. I wanted to talk to you. It was great talking to you, sir. And thank you so much for giving me your valuable time, sir. And I hope
Sure.
connecting with you very soon again.
All right. All right. Good luck with your studies, and see you later.